How do I hold someone accountable? It's a question I get all the time. Wes, what do I do when somebody that I'm managing is not meeting my expectations? You know the answer to that question? Conversation and consequence. Conversation and consequence. Have to have them both. It doesn't matter if it's manager to employee, teacher to student. Holding people accountable begins with you. If you aren't consistent with your feedback, if you're too afraid to have an uncomfortable conversation, of course, people aren't following your expectations. If you see something, say something. If you feel something, say something. And the first person that you need to say something to is you. You need to reflect effectively about what has happened. That move or that statement that they made, what did that make me think? What did that make me feel? What happened in that moment? You have to have the emotional intelligence as a manager to really, really examine yourself in that moment. Examine what you want for your team in that moment. What should happen? What should not happen? And before you go on to have a conversation with this person, you must know in your mind, in your heart, be able to articulate what needs to happen next time. The next step in holding people accountable is your approach. Typically, people are not going to follow your expectations in a public or private setting. Let's first talk about public. When someone fails to follow your expectations and the rest of your team can clearly see that, guess what? You're on stage and you're the lead actor and you need to have the lines. For example, let's say John has come into the morning meeting 15 minutes late. Everybody knows that John is late. In that moment, of course, you aren't going to single out John in the middle of the meeting. But once everybody says break, everybody on that team is going to hear me say, hey, John, let me check in with you. Hey, John, can I holler at you real quick? Hey, John, let me check in with you real quick. With conviction, with no contention, no ego, I'm saying to John, I'm saying to my team, I'm about to have a conversation with this person to make sure that my expectations will be held. That person still has their dignity. I still have my dignity as the manager. I didn't interrupt the meeting. I didn't make that person feel singled out. But it's pretty clear that I'm about to have a conversation with John about being late. I just said that you need to have your lines ready. You know that's going to happen. Someone's going to be late. Someone's going to fail to turn in their timesheet on time. It's going to happen. So have that one-liner of, hey, John, let me check in with you. Hey, Susan, can I put something in your ear real quick? Have that ready to go. The other side of the approach is when someone doesn't follow your expectations and it's in private. Even better, right? You don't have the audience. However, this does mean that it gives you an opportunity to be very strategic. No matter who you are, we all have experiences with someone holding us accountable as children, as students, past employers, and relationship. And sometimes we've had negative experiences when someone wants to talk, right? So you must understand what are the tendencies and the needs of the people on your team. Karen might want to see a text message that says, hey, Karen, can we talk at 2 p.m.? But for Joseph, that text message is going to give him anxiety all day. You have to know what's the best way to approach your team so that they are emotionally available to hear your feedback and have a productive conversation. Below in the link, I have a list of all the possibilities that you should consider when approaching someone to have a difficult conversation. There's also an assessment piece with it. I want you to give that assessment to your team and store those results because when, not if, when you need to have an uncomfortable conversation with somebody, your approach matters. Now, let's get to one of the most difficult parts in holding someone accountable, the conversation. You have two goals for that conversation. If you get both of them, great. But I'll settle for if you just get the second one. The first one is the two of you agree about what happened. The second one, the two of you agree about what needs to happen next time. That second one is of utmost importance. And you must walk into that meeting having an idea of what you want to happen next time as the manager. So your conversation should start with this question. You as manager to them ask, what happened? Hey, Tim, what happened with your reports? Hey, Susan, I saw you came in late. What happened? Right there, you bring down so many guards. You open it up to a dialogue between two people. You didn't walk into that conversation saying, hey, Tom, you're supposed to be here at 8. It's right up. No. You've allowed this person to enter into a space where they can talk reasonably and actually be able to work on a solution for next time. So ask what happened. And as that person talks, hear them and respond with what happened from your end. As the two of you are working this out, a few things are going to happen. You're going to agree about some things. You might hear some excuses. That person may not admit to what they did wrong. They might say, yeah, I was totally off, boss. I'm going to get on it. They're going to say a lot of things. And in the middle of that conversation, you should be able to see if the two of you are going to be able to agree about what happened. And worst case scenario, let's say that the two of you do not agree about what happened. Bob is determined to say that it wasn't his fault that he was late. There was a deer on fire in the middle of the 101.
Bruh.
Whatever it is. Guess what you and Bob are going to end that conversation on? What needs to happen next time? You've got to walk in already knowing exactly where you want to go with that. Hey, Bob, next time I need to know 15 minutes before that you're going to be late. Hey, Bob, next time I need you here by the time the first announcement is given in the meeting. That next time is tangible. It's something that you can look to as another piece of holding them accountable, and it opens you up to the next part, the consequence. The last piece of holding someone accountable is the consequence. What is a consequence? It's the result of an action. Very simple. And I got news for you. You are a consequence. You are a whole consequence because you are a figure of authority. So your nonverbals, your body language is a consequence for you to even start on. I'll get there in a second, but what I want to impose onto you is that you have an entire arsenal of consequences that work for human beings. Just like I started off, your body language. Sometimes in that first infraction with that person, just one of these of consequence. It makes a difference. Don't sweep it under the rug and act like you didn't see it. Sometimes that's consequence. Moving through, you have other things that at your disposal as the manager. You have, hey, I'm going to make a personal note of this. Make sure that you're working on this throughout the next month. Wasn't an official write-up, a personal note, something that they know boss is watching this. You can move it on up to official write-ups within the organizational culture. You can move it up to performance improvement plans where you are working with that person, coaching them through what they need. You can move it all the way up through a termination. Yes, all those things are there. But remember, you as an individual, you hold authority. Those low-level choices that I just spoke to, they make a difference. Your body language, that idea that you are keeping a personal note of this, that is a consequence. So hang on to that. Hold people accountable. Let them know your expectations. Have a conversation and deliver a consequence.